Hello and welcome to the Road to Autonomy. The Road to Autonomy is brought to you in part by Stantec Generation AV. Stantec Generation AV combines some of the most experienced AV experts in the industry with the resources of a global engineering firm. Stantec Generation AV provides education, consulting, assessment, and guidance to any industry interested in autonomous vehicles. Learn more at stantec.com. Hello and welcome to the Road to Autonomy. I am your host, Grayson Brulte. On today's episode, we're absolutely honored to have Dr. Jerry Parrish, Chief Economist and Director of Research, Florida Chamber Foundation. Welcome to the podcast, Dr. Parrish.
Thanks, Grayson. I'm glad to be here, and please call me Jerry.
Absolutely. We can definitely call you Jerry, but you are one of the coolest, smartest individuals I know, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Jerry, you were the only chief economist for a state chamber of commerce. This is cool, innovative, and super, super smart. Why is that?
You're right. I'm the only one for any state chamber in the entire country. And the reason the Florida Chamber did this was, they're investing in the data. We want to run the state with data and send it out to our county commissioners and city commissioners and legislators and local chambers. So having a PhD in economics as part of your chamber is very innovative. You got to give Mark Wilson, our CEO, credit for that one, because it's a big investment. I always say economists are, we're not cheap. We're very expensive and we're high maintenance. So it is quite an investment on the Florida Chamber's part.
But you publish incredible data. One of the really cool things that I've never seen another state do is the Florida Scorecard of all the incredible data. Could you talk about that, please?
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that. People can find that at thefloridascorecard.org. And it literally is hundreds of thousands of pieces of data, not just at the state level, it's at county levels as well. And it's the metrics that we need to run the state on. It's everything from the number of jobs we've created year over year, it's poverty rates, and it's, health scores for kids. We just put up one today that talks about where Florida ranks in health. But we have 6 pillars of the Florida economy that is divided under. And so you can get things on education, you can get things on economic development, you can get data on technology and innovation. We have a pillar for that, quality of life, all those things that really we take a look at and try to improve Florida every chance we get, working toward the goals that we have for 2030.
What are some of those 2030 goals?
Yeah, that's a great question. A couple of years ago, the Florida Chamber Foundation did something that appears nobody else had ever done. We went around to all 67 of Florida's counties. We engaged more than 10,000 people live in rooms to talk about what kind of Florida they wanted for the future. And we set a lot of goals. There's 39 goals out of this. And the first kind of overarching one is, Florida right now, if it was an independent country, we'd have the 17th largest economy in the world. And that shocks a lot of people because they think Florida, especially if you're from outside the state, they think Florida is not much more than Mickey Mouse and a bunch of great beaches. But there's a lot of business here. We got a $1.1 trillion economy, 17th largest in the world. And that goal from our 2030 blueprint says we want to make Florida the 10th largest by 2030. But there's other goals. We want to have, all of our state agencies aligned with these goals. We want to be the top 5 state for overall well-being. One that's important to you, I'm sure, is we want to be in the top 3 for tech jobs of any state in the country. We want to be in the top 3 for venture capital investment. We want to be the number 1 state for business startups, and we want to be number 1 in R&D funding. Those are those things that really will continue to diversify Florida's economy and create high-wage jobs and prosperity for Floridians.
It's incredible goals. They're goals that, in my opinion, will be achieved, and in some cases will exceed those goals. Florida's economy is one of the main things that drew me here. We're coming out of the COVID pandemic. What is the current state of the Florida economy today?
I speak about this every day, and I just gave a presentation at lunch and did a video before that. That's been the most common question. How are we doing? You got to remember back to last year or before last year, before COVID, let's talk about that. Florida, since 2015, was creating more than 1 out of every 11 jobs in this country. And that's a big deal because Florida is only about 5% of the U.S. economy. So 1 in 20 would be average. Yet we were creating more than 1 out of every 11. So we are on the path back to that. Certainly COVID, knocked us for a loop. We lost 1.1 million jobs between February and April of this past year. We've regained more than 700,000 of those jobs. So we're on the path to recovery. Certainly leisure and hospitality is the laggard here, but we're back as far as finance and insurance job. We're about to be back to 100% where we were before COVID, and manufacturing and other industries as well. So construction, those kind of things, and other industries will come back, but it certainly will be a couple of years before we get all of our tourism jobs back.
Jobs are coming back. Individuals are flocking to the state at record numbers. You open the New York Post or the LA Times, you see, another high-profile person moved here, another business moved here, and Florida's population is projected to reach 26 million residents by 2030. At the rate we're going, it's probably going to be more. How is the state preparing for this massive increase of new residents?
That's a great question. Our CEO, Mark Wilson, has told everybody, especially the Florida legislature, hey, let's do a better job, preparing for the next 6 million Floridians than we did the last 6 million. So as we stand now, we're about 22 million people in the state. Before COVID, we were growing about 900 net new people a day. I did my forecast for this year. It has slowed just a little bit, but we're still getting about 800 net new people a day here in the state. And so the legislature's been planning. We've spent more than $10 billion a year through our Florida Department of Transportation, getting some of the hard assets, roads and bridges and those kind of things prepared for more and expanding. One of the things we also show is what counties that those people are expected to go to. And before COVID, what was really interesting about Florida is we could show them that more than a third of the people, the new people coming in, this next 4 million people, were expected to grow in just 4 counties. And that's Miami-Dade, Orange, Hillsborough, and Broward. So more than a third of that 4 million people in 4 counties, the top 7 counties, we can add Palm Beach, Lee, and Duval and cover about half of the entire growth. And then, going down the list, it takes about 17 out of Florida's 67 counties to cover 3/4 of the growth. So here's the way it looks. The dense counties are expected to get denser. That was pre-COVID. There'll be a little bit of change here. We've had some people move into the suburbs and to the rural counties as well because of COVID. But I think what'll happen here is because of COVID, you'll see more and more people move to Florida. Those people that don't have to go into an office every day. Why not live in Florida if you can maybe fly up to Chicago, one day a month for a staff meeting? Or you can live a couple hours out of town if you only have to drive into your office maybe once a week. What we're going to see is a little more spreading out than what we thought before COVID. But still, I expect us to be back at that 900 net new people a day next year, and maybe that following that. And, so Florida has prepared some. Legislature has put across some bills to advance the MCORs around the state in the rural areas that go not just roads, but the technology, because certainly the areas that are seeing the growth now are those with high-speed, broadband access, and those areas are actually the ones that are going to win the game.
I'm happy you brought up broadband because you're right, that's the game changer. If you can get consistently high-speed internet, you can work remotely, you can go into a video conference, and so that's that. And I'm really happy you brought up individuals moving here because the quality of life in Florida is second to none. And I've lived in several areas around the United States, and the quality of life here is the best I've ever experienced. Florida might get a bad rap from the outside, but when you live here, you understand why individuals don't want to leave here once they come here. So we've got these individuals coming here for a great quality of life, chasing new jobs, working remotely, spreading out throughout our incredibly beautiful state. What impact will this have on the state's economy? You mentioned Hillsborough, which is growing really fast with Tampa. Will we see certain economic pockets of the state grow faster than others, or will this have a general broad impact on the state's economy?
Certainly, you'll see growth overall, but yeah, it will grow more where we've made those investments, especially in our workforce. We've got some great, talented people here in workforce, and we've got a great opportunity here. One of the things that I've been talking about for quite a while is, our tourism industry has been the trainer of people for all industries in the state of Florida, and it's happened for a long time. Not very many people have realized that. But what we're in the situation now is maybe people have been displaced of leisure and hospitality. They can take advantage of. You remember, Florida's got the best state college system, our 2-year colleges. We got the best system in the entire country. You don't have to listen to me. We're winning awards for doing it. We got great universities. And the communities that are going to do the best are those people that are going to take those people trained in hospitality and help them get a technical skill and get them into an industry that's growing. It's a lot easier, and people know this. It's a lot easier to take somebody with good employability skills. Maybe they got their training in hospitality or somewhere else, and help those folks get a technical skill. It's a lot easier to do that than the other way around. Take a technical person and try to get them employability skills. So I think Florida really is in a great position here to move the growth curve up and all over the state. But those communities that figure out how to do this the best, they're going to be the ones that win the game.
I love, love, love the hospitality industry. Some of my best friends work front of house, back of house in the hospitality industry. And they have one common skill that's better than most individuals I know. They know people skills. They know conflict resolution. They know how to. I've seen some brilliant hotel managers diffuse a situation where the person is basically red in the face and they walk away. Thank you, sir. This is really wonderful. Those skills are invaluable. And you put that into a corporate environment. If you're dealing with an M&A transaction, you can't replace those skills.
Yeah, and it's those problem-solving skills and working as teams and communicating with your team members. It's those skills, really. It's about 80%. We did a report not long ago. We got funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to do a report, really taking a really deep dive into the future needs of Florida's workforce. And what we found is about 80% of the skills needed were those employability skills, communication and problem solving, those things exactly we're talking about. And so they're applicable to every single industry in this state. So what I call the leisure and hospitality, the hospitality industry of Florida trains more people than anybody for all industries across the state. That's a big advantage that we have here.
It's a huge advantage, and you're seeing it with companies relocating here. Blackstone, the big private equity firm, they're moving their technology office. And then an interview with Institutional Investor magazine, John Stetcher, who's Blackstone's chief technology officer, stated the following: local university programs in computer science and engineering will provide Blackstone with solid recruitment grounds, while the seasoned tech professionals in the area are another potential pool of talent. And so that could be the hospitality industry individuals that understand this world. We're having the tech talent. And then you mentioned the university system. We have the number one higher education system in the United States. We have 3 of the top 100 universities located in the state. It's absolutely incredible. How can we ensure that this talent pipeline stays really strong as companies like Blackstone relocate down here?
Well, I think there's just a renewed emphasis on our talent supply. One of the things I think that we have an advantage is our chancellor of the state university system is a business guy. He knows the business world, and he engages the business community to tell the universities what we need. What we need is business community. I think Florida's got the big advantage for that reason. I've already mentioned our state college system. They work with our workforce system, with CareerSource Florida. And I believe there's more communication. I know at the Florida Chamber, I have communication every week with somebody from CareerSource Florida, from our Department of Economic Opportunity. It can be anybody from the director to the chief economist to somebody else. We're in constant contact, and I'm excited to announce that the Florida Chamber Foundation is about to embark on something. We've actually already started. We're doing another deep dive into the workforce, and what we're concentrating on is those folks that may have been displaced and also our adult workers. Let's say you got out of high school and Grayson decided he wanted to go work for a restaurant. The money was good. He was working as a server. He never got around to going to school, but maybe now's a good time that he's thinking about that. So what skills could we get, these individuals? What are the fast growing careers? We can show you, the training program links, the training program cost, and let you choose what skill that you would like to acquire to get in whatever industry that you're interested in, and show you which ones are growing in the future. I'm very excited about this project. We're going to do it at a level that nobody's ever done for the state of Florida. It's going to be high tech, and we're really going to be able to look at those skills, and even on a regional basis for a lot of Florida. It's going to be something. We're going to release this in our June Learners to Earners Summit. It'll either be done by then and released at the Foundation's Learners to Earners Summit, or they'll probably have a new chief economist if I don't on time. But I feel confident we're going to get this thing done, and I believe it's really going to open some eyes. And our state colleges will take that. Our state university system and private universities will look at that stuff, and we'll all prepare for Florida's future together.
Something tells me you're going to get it done, and you're going to do a really great job at getting it done. I love the analogy of I'm working in a restaurant, and I have the person skills. I understand how an assembly line works. I understand all the logistics that go into making a meal and to processing a payment. And let's just say I'm the server. I'm like, wait a second, there's an opportunity to simplify the payment process. So perhaps I can go through that program and learn fintech, which we're starting to see completely boom. And tech jobs are pouring into the state. SoftBank announced the $100 million Miami fund for companies located in the 305. Florida now has the venture capital that we never had. What influx is this going to have on the individuals that are going through this process, and to the companies moving from California? Are we just about to see an incredible economic boom that only the state can succeed because the state has shown complete leadership across the board?
I believe we are posed for that exactly. And we've got leaders in our legislature. I know you like to talk about autonomous vehicles. We've got people like Senator Brandis who've made Florida the place to be for autonomous vehicles. We've got a really forward-thinking legislature who've really made businesses understand that Florida is the place to invest private capital. That we're not going to do anything crazy here. We're going to welcome private capital. Everybody knows that when private capital gets invested, people go to work. And, this focus on jobs, creating opportunity for people in the state of Florida. I like to read the headlines like you're reading about different people moving to the state, leaders of industries that are leaving Silicon Valley and coming from New York and coming from other places. There's a lot of people that can take credit for that. We went through the wave where the hedge funds were all moving to Palm Beach County. And we can thank Kelly Smallridge for a lot of that. She really was instrumental in doing that. And I think once people saw the hedge funds people moving here and saw what we already had that had been built over years and years in places like Miami, it made it possible for them. Now they're getting the headlines, but let's give credit to those people that have been working on making Florida a technology state for a long, long time.
Yep, there's been so many incredible individuals, and one of those individuals and organizations is from Space Florida. It's completely, utterly amazing with the Space Coast. And I was talking to Jimmy Petronas, and he said the Space Coast is now officially the comeback coast. We have Blue Origin, SpaceX, and then you have Ariane, who's building these really cool supersonic jets, announced that they're going to invest $300 million and create 675 high-paying jobs. What is the future of the Space Coast? Because to me, it just seems like this is going to become the future of space is going to be built in Florida, and there's going to be an economic boom around jobs that's going to happen there.
You're absolutely right. I remember seeing the job numbers when we lost the space shuttle program in Brevard County. Engineers were leaving. When nobody knew what to do. Yeah, there was a period of time when things looked really, really horrible. But right now, you have all those companies over there. I want to talk to you about Florida manufacturing, those people that may not really be paying attention. Over the past few years, Florida's been growing manufacturing jobs 3 times the U.S. rate. And I'm going to tell you, Brevard County grew 1 out of every 6 of those new manufacturing jobs. And a lot of it has been space. And I've been over there and I've seen where they build satellites, for the multi-array satellites. And I won't name any companies, but you'll probably know who I'm talking about. But I've been in the factory, and to see Brevard County, at the moment we lost the space shuttle, and it looked like, everybody was going to leave, the last person in Brevard County, please turn out the lights. To this, it has been an amazing transformation. And those manufacturing jobs and those high-tech jobs diversify our economy. The average manufacturing wage in Brevard County right now is $90,000. And that's on the Florida Scorecard. We post it for every single county in the state. And we also post what percentage of your entire private sector payroll comes from manufacturing, because we're big believers in manufacturing here. I'm so excited to see what's happening over there at the Space Coast. I couldn't be happier.
I'm happy you brought up manufacturing, because Florida is one of the only states that you can manufacture an innovative product. You have a really great regulatory environment. You can launch it into space without having to pay a per mile tax of going into space. It's absolutely phenomenal. The next thing for space is that space tourism is going to come at some point. Will the Space Coast, do you think, eventually start to embrace space tourism? Because I could see, and we're going to look into the future here, a family goes and says hello to Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse and Goofy, and then goes right down and goes to a trip to outer space and says hello to the stars, and then shoots down on the bright line to Miami. It just seems like every experience you want to have could happen here in Florida in the future.
Yeah, it really could. And that's exciting. Space tourism is going to happen, and it is going to happen in the state of Florida. You can see it coming. That's a pretty high-end ticket. But, hey, Florida is a great place to spend, for people to spend their money. Actually, the state of Florida runs on sales tax. It'd be a great sales tax number on the tickets for those things that we'll get to keep here in the state of Florida that'll pay for the infrastructure and those kind of things. But, yeah, it is going to happen. And that, we were fortunate that we had that infrastructure, the space-oriented infrastructure, and we didn't tear it down, but we continue to use it, continue to rebuild on it. I'm going to tell you, that first time I saw a reusable rocket land on a barge out there in the ocean, I knew Florida was in the game. That was one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. And that happens all the time now. It's just, it happens on a regular basis. Those folks that are pulling those kind of things off over there, we got some of the best talent in the world. It's very obvious that it's here in Florida.
Who and why was the decision not to tear down the infrastructure made?
That's a great question. I don't know the answer to that, but here, let me take a guess. It's super expensive to tear down infrastructure, so they probably just never got around to it. I don't know if that's true. I hope somebody will write in and correct me that somebody had the foresight to leave it there, thinking that we would be able to reuse it. Whoever that was that either decided not to tear it down or decided, hey, we need to keep it, because we can use it. You got to give them credit for, that industry being in Florida. And, it's so great. People that work in that industry, they're over there, they live near the coast. They've got a great place to live. It's just, just a great part of Florida. All parts of Florida are great, but that one where you can have, if you're an average manufacturing employee, you can have a $90,000 a year job. That's pretty cool.
With no state income tax. It's game changer, because you can provide a great quality of life for yourself and your family, and you get to see really cool things because you're right in the heart of Florida. We've talked about the space industry being here, the tech industry moving here, the hospitality industry being here. But one we haven't touched on yet, which I love your opinion, we have a thriving agriculture business here. We have over 47,000 commercial farms and ranches, totaling 9.45 million acres. We're an agricultural powerhouse. Could you talk about this industry, please?
Sure, and I love to talk about this. I'm from a farming family, and my background is my undergrad degree is in agricultural business and economics. So that's one of the exciting things I get to do is to talk about what's going on in the state. A lot of people understand that Florida is a pretty big producer in fruits and vegetables. What they probably don't realize is we're either number one or number two in the country in most of those things that can be grown here. And when I go around the state, I talk about agriculture, and the biggest surprise, there's two surprises I always get. One, Miami is got manufacturing jobs than any county in the state of Florida. Nobody believes it. They're always shocked by that. But probably an even bigger surprise, Palm Beach County is the number one agricultural county in the state of Florida. And so we got sugar down there. We got lots of fruits and vegetables, but what a lot of people don't realize is Florida is a top calf producer. We have a bunch of cow-calf operations that are producing calves for, they typically export and get finished in another state. But we're a big, big cattle producer, and I don't think a lot of people understand that.
What is the economic impact of the agriculture industry on the state?
Well, it's huge, and it's not just the jobs it provides. It's not just a great place to grow up. I grew up riding on a tractor, and I love it today. I have a farm up in Alabama. I go up there every chance that I get. I was up there within the last 3 weeks, and there's nothing like a farming, a farm to maybe center yourself and kind of get away from the city. But what it also provides, and this is big for Florida, is it provides locally grown fresh fruits and vegetables. We have this brand called Fresh from Florida. It's the marketing arm of our Department of Agriculture. I really believe that we've got a big advantage here. You want to give fresh vegetables and fruit to our school kids. Hey, it's grown right here in the state of Florida. You don't have to import it, in from other places. And so we've got that advantage. We've got a lot of high-end vegetables and produce being grown for our restaurants. We've got world-class restaurants and that depend on locally grown vegetables and fruits and meats. And, that really takes a situation where somebody with a very small farm can make a living, producing stuff for the fresh market, producing stuff for the restaurants, the higher end restaurants that are willing to pay for that locally grown, really high nutrient value foods that are grown right here. So I think that's a great opportunity. It's a great opportunity. Hey, I got a tangerine tree. I live in North Florida. I got a tangerine tree. I still got tangerines on that tree. I had a bumper crop this year. And, people really take that for granted. And if I posted a picture of that thing right now, or maybe especially last week when that was going through, and told people I live in Tallahassee, not in South Florida, I don't think they would believe it. But it's that opportunity all over the state for people to grow something in their yard, to get out, get a little exercise. It's just an awesome opportunity for Florida families.
It's a great opportunity for families. And I want to give a nice shout out to the farmers. And they're very welcoming to children. When children want to go to the farm and experience the farm, there's so many great things. If it's you're going to visit the cattle or you're going to go learn about fruits and vegetables, the farmers of the state do an incredible job welcoming children in school tours.
Yeah, I appreciate that too. We don't want to lose a generation that doesn't know where their food comes from. That's very important when it's how it's grown and where it comes from locally. If not, you'll just sit there and think it all comes from the supermarket, and we all know that's not true.
No, it's not true. It's grown fresh here in Florida, and it's completely good for you. We've covered a lot around the diversification of Florida's economy. And you're kind of seeing this massive influx we alluded to it earlier, of tech jobs coming in. And I'm calling this the Great Florida Migration, very similar to what we saw with the California Gold Rush. And during that time, during the Gold Rush, two very famous companies were founded. One was Levi Strauss and Wells Fargo. Levi Strauss sold jeans. Henry Wells and William Fargo provided the much-needed banking services and the secure transfer of gold. During this migration to Florida, what new business do you think might be found during this migration that will go on to have a lasting impact on society?
That's a great question. And my job literally is to look 2 to 30 years in the future and come up with things that I think Florida's gonna do, solutions that, we have for issues that we have now and issues in the future. It's very difficult to predict what companies will do. However, a couple of things that I really think we're going to see some innovation on. One is you're going to see a lot of financial technology. The fintech. I know the governor's talked about it. I know there's a lot of stuff happening in the state already. Some of the things. Transaction costs are still pretty high for a lot of things around the world, and we've seen innovations from other countries. I think we're going to see a lot of that here because we have such a good financial system here in the state of Florida. And we've got a lot of people working on those issues. I certainly know that our automated vehicles are going to be, some of the leading technology will come out of here, no doubt. Because when we think about that, we got Autonomous Florida as part of the Florida Chamber system here. And they're working on those kind of things every day, helping make sure the legislature, makes it friendly for things to be developed in the state of Florida. I get pretty excited when I think about, automation of delivery stuff, things like, autonomous trucks. I believe that there's a lot of those things going to be developed here in the state of Florida when we can move products long distance without people. That's really going to cut down on our transportation costs. And it's super important for Florida. And let me tell you why. At the Chamber Foundation, even before I came to work here 6 years ago, I worked on a project called Trade and Logistics 2. And it's something the Florida Chamber Foundation did. And they showed how about half of our trains, trucks, ships, and planes, and containers leave the state empty. They come in with consumer goods, they leave empty, and that drives up our inbound transportation costs. You can't blame the transportation companies. If your probability of a backhaul is only 50%, you have to get more for your trip down to Florida. Let's say you're a truck line. When we can balance that, fill those containers up with Florida manufactured goods, it's actually going to make Florida more competitive because our inbound freight will be less. Our inbound cost to consumers will be less. And, I really believe that autonomous vehicles are going to really drastically, when you don't have to pay a team of two guys, or a male and female or two females to drive a truck from here to Omaha anymore, really going to reduce the cost of freight. That's specifically going to help Florida more than any other state in the country. But those kind of things will happen. There'll be things that we can't even dream of at this point, communications and other things. We're a leader in that. We're a leader in aircraft technology. We've got a great manufacturing in not just aircraft, but also a lot of medical goods. I can foresee the time where we'll see a lot of drug manufacturing and medical goods manufacturing move more to Florida. We got a lot here, but if we could get those folks to come in from Puerto Rico, move to Florida, there's going to be things that we can't even think about now.
It's absolutely incredible. And staying on the autonomous vehicle topic for a minute, HB 311 signed by Governor DeSantis at the SunTrax facility, that was the game changer. That opened the floodgates for companies to come and operate here. In Miami, you have Argo AI, which has just recently announced a huge expansion out by the Miami airport. They're hiring with incredibly high-paying jobs. And I spoke to Brian Selesky, who's their co-founder and CEO, and I said, Brian, what do you look for when you recruit jobs? He said, Grayson, if you can use a hammer and a saw, I want to talk to you. You have to have hard skills because I can teach you how to make the computer work. You need to have those skills, those hard skills. And that was really impressive. And we have Voyages operating in the villages, moving those individuals around their community. And you mentioned delivery services. Soon Neuro's going to come here with their autonomous delivery service. So I would love to see a future where these services are operating here, their headquarters are here, and they're being manufactured here. And then through the help of Autonomous Florida and the Florida Chamber, Florida becomes the autonomous vehicle capital of North America.
I can easily see that happening, and I appreciate the work that you've done. I appreciate the work of Florida here. I appreciate those legislators who've really been visionary, like Senator Brandes. That's really going to make some great opportunities for Floridians now. One of the things we have to do, Grayson, we got, I always talk a lot about imports and exports. You know what the number one export that I hate to see leave the state of Florida? You want to guess what that is?
Job? No, I don't know. That's a
Is educated kids. If we could keep more of those kids here, and and that's by economic development and creating more jobs and expanding Florida companies and have more move in here. You got to take a look at what it costs us to educate somebody. And I teach at Florida State, so I give my kids a hard time. I say, listen, I said, I will help you find a job if you are willing to stay in the state of Florida, because I want to turn you into a Florida taxpayer. We're subsidizing your education. That's obvious. If they're at a state university, it's absolutely true. And I want to turn them into taxpayers because, I want them to have that opportunity to stay here. And I talk to business people all the time. I give speeches all over the state of Florida. And I kid around with them. I say, listen, I said, you may not care that much about whether your kid stays around or not, but I'm going to tell you something. We're creating jobs so your grandkid could stay here in the state of Florida. And the light bulb goes off. It's like, holy crap, I want my grandkids to stay around. May or may not like my kid. It depends on your kid. But that really is what we're doing here at the Florida Chamber Foundation. With this Florida 2030 blueprint, we're setting the stage to where by 2030, we can have an economy that nobody will want to leave. There won't be any reason why somebody wouldn't want to come to Florida to do business. Florida will be a business-friendly state. We'll have the technology we need. We'll have the talent that we need. And talent's the key to economic development. It absolutely is. Companies will move where the talent's being produced. We know that, and it's going to continue to be that way.
You're right. It's sad when you think about it, where I went from California to Florida because I saw the opportunity of relationship with yourselves and, great individuals in this state. And I had no idea that, there's this dream where kids, I'm going to Silicon Valley. But now Silicon Valley is coming here, and Mayor Suarez down in Miami has made it cool to come to Miami. And you read the San Francisco Chronicle, it's like another company leaves, and the Founders Fund, Peter Thiel's company, they're opening an office here. If they stay 2-3 years, they're going to fall in love. Then we got in a heck of an ecosystem that's going to travel throughout the state. And then, hopefully my daughter stays and doesn't say, oh, Dad, I'm going back to California. Oh, great.
You got to give Mayor Suarez a bunch of credit here. I've seen a million posts of his tweets, how can I help? And when public officials like that pay attention and show that Florida is going to be friendly to their business, they don't get that from a lot of other states. You really, some states will welcome you in and then tax you to death, but not having a state income tax, we've got a reason. One of the great things about Florida is we have to balance our budget as a state. We can't run huge deficits like Illinois and some other states that really take a lot to live in. And so people are leaving those states. So they're having to raise the tax rates on the people that are left. And those people are moving as well. We're seeing a lot of those folks in Florida, welcoming them with open arms. And let's give our politicians credit, literally just showing and without doubt that we're going to be friendly. You want to think about coming to Florida. I saw, I don't know if it's a real billboard or a proposed billboard that says, DM me. You're thinking about moving to Miami, DM me. And that was from the mayor. I don't know if that's a true story or not, but maybe somebody made it up. But that's exactly what we need. Just the willingness that we'll talk to you, will help you. We'll help you move your business to this state. We'll help you find people. And our training system, our state colleges and state universities is working on producing the people that you actually need to run your business. Hey, that's magic right there.
It is magic, and I'm very happy to tell you that the billboard is true. It is real. It is off the 101 in downtown San Francisco. And so I see a picture of this. I'm like, okay, so I DM Mayor Suarez. I got a response. So we had a nice conversation. And so if you want to reach out to Mayor Suarez, you're interesting, he does respond to the DMs. And it's probably one of the greatest marketing campaigns of a politician trying to recruit businesses. It's I'll never forget it when Rick Perry was able to convince Toyota to move from Carson, California to Plano, Texas. And the next day after it was announced, the front page of the LA Times said, "This one hurts." It was absolutely amazing. And now hopefully we can get Visa or one of the big fintech companies to relocate to Florida. And the San Francisco Chronicle say this one hurts. and the Miami Herald said, "This one's awesome." And that would be a really great thing. Jerry, looking to the future, what does Florida's economy look like? Are we going to continue to be diverse? Are we going to continue to diversify?
Yeah, that's a great question, Grayson. And I talk to business people all the time, and I ask them to guess if Florida's, if the number one, if you're number one, you're the most diverse state economy in the country versus number 50, you're the least. Where does Florida fall? And so when we're live in rooms, when we could do that a lot, get a lot of guesses. 35, 40, 45 is the most common guess. So Florida, nowhere near the most diverse economy is what even business people thought. So I talked to my friend. I have a friend that is the dean down at the business school at Florida Gulf Coast University. Chris and I, the dean, and I've been friends for a long time. We actually went to graduate school together. So Chris Wesley, I said, come up with something that we can use on the Florida Scorecard, and I'll put it on the scorecard, and I'll make you famous. Florida Gulf Coast University came out with an industry diversification index, and it's a really neat way to measure. And what happened was we came out with Florida being, right now in the top 20 most diverse economies in the country. Now, some people say, well, how can that be? You're heavily dependent on tourism, you're heavily dependent on, construction, you're heavily dependent on agriculture. Well, actually, Florida's one of the better states here. And so just breaking that myth has been part of the impetus of further diversifying the economy. The state has 8 targeted industries that we target when we're trying to recruit companies. Every one of them creates higher than average wage jobs and diversifies the economy even further. And I was able to prove with my grad students that, sometimes when we used to pay incentives, that the state of Florida makes a whole lot of money. Even when we have to pay incentives for people to move here. Now, we lost one of our top incentive programs, the QTI program. I'm hopeful that we're going to get that back. It gives companies a tax credit when they create jobs here in the state, when they move in or when they expand. Florida's made a whole lot of money over that. And it's kept us to where we're in the situation where we don't have to have the state income tax. Our tourists pay more than $6 billion a year in state taxes. And these are not you going across the state and your family. This is people coming from other states and other countries. And they pay more than $5.3 billion worth of local taxes. So they're paying the bulk of the taxes. Their kids don't, go in school. They typically don't have to interact with our judicial system. So they're actually a pretty low impact way to make money. But growing jobs is still the best way to raise tax revenue. Florida has to balance its budget. You're much better off growing more jobs than you are trying to raise the tax rate, and then people leave the state and go somewhere else. So I think Florida's figured that out over the last few years. We certainly are working on that all the time here at the Florida Chamber Foundation. But I think the future's really bright for our state. We've got a lot going for us now. We're a lot more diversified than most people think.
The future is incredibly bright for Florida. And Jerry, as we look to wrap up this extremely insightful and interesting conversation, what would you like our listeners to take away with them?
First of all, I want to let them know that should they have questions, maybe they're, looking at something locally, need help finding someone to help them move a company to the state of Florida, they can always contact me at the Florida Chamber Foundation. And I want them to use me for data as well. They can look at the Florida Scorecard. We actually had a scorecard here before I got to the Florida Chamber Foundation. It wasn't, I didn't think, well laid out. So we relayed it out and got some different metrics and things. But one of the things that's really important about the Florida Scorecard is at any time, day or night, there's a little button on the bottom that says contact us. If you click on that and you type in an email message with a return email, that email comes directly to me. So I'll be the Mayor Suarez of the rest of the state of Florida. If anybody wants to talk to anybody, they're thinking about expanding their company, or they need data, or they want questions answered, I encourage them to contact me directly here at the Florida Chamber Foundation. I'm very easy to find. They can pick up the phone and say, talk to that economist, because there's only one of us up here at the Chamber Foundation. They could even call a different state's chamber, and they would say, oh, no, you need to call Florida. Here's the number. And they could get a hold of me. I'll help anybody at any time who's willing to create some jobs here in the state of Florida.
And as you've heard Jerry say, Florida is open for business. The state wants to help you succeed here, and whatever the state can do to help you succeed here, the state will do to help you succeed here. The future's bright, the future's autonomous, and the future is Florida. Dr. Parrish, thank you so much for coming on the Road to Autonomy today.
Thanks, Grayson. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Well, thank you. Thank you for listening to the Road to Autonomy podcast. If you've enjoyed listening, please rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Want to get in touch? Follow us on Twitter at Road to Autonomy or email podcast@brulteco.com. The Road to Autonomy is produced by Brulte & Company. The views and opinions expressed on the Road to Autonomy podcast do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of Brulte & Company. The content discussed on this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be taken as legal, tax, investment, or business advice.